Okay.
Good luck.
I'm gonna need it.
Yeah, I thought you would be able to come. Yeah. I'll bet your ass once more, probably next to the one we discussed it. We're mixed down in the 4 by that. I'd like to close it. I don't think there are 7 shots. What?
No, this is mine. Yeah, that's mine. I'm trying to be healthy. Okay, welcome everybody. We're gonna be reviewing DDoS attacks on this fine evening. Okay. All right, so a bit of history. The first DDoS attack was happened in August 1999. It was against the University of Minnesota. Oh, yeah. And it took down their services for around 2 days. This was like an internal thing. I'm pretty sure from what my research was, it was like by accident, where someone like had launched a tool, and it DDoS the whole network. And recently, this is not most recent, but one in 2020, AWS reported that an incoming traffic from a DDoS attack totaled to 2.3 terabytes of data per second to a different service. They took advantage of a certain protocol that doesn't actually pretty sure it was on Windows web service, and it allowed the traffic through to make connections without ever screening it.
I'm not sure what CLDAP is specifically, but LDAP in general is like an Active Directory on Windows.
Yeah. So what is DDoSing? It is a distributed denial of service. That's what it means. And it is attacking a network or service on a network to make accessing those services and network virtually impossible for anyone else. Its goal is to spread as much traffic as you can to one place in order to knock it offline or make it way slower. Why DDoS? So a lot of attackers will take advantage of DDoSing because it's a lot easier to set up as long as you have access to a lot of computers or a lot of networks. It is genuinely probably the easiest malware to set up because you don't have to do anything other than request a shitload of times. It takes minimal knowledge. You do not need inside knowledge of the service you're attacking, unless you're trying to get away from DDoS mitigations, and we'll go over that later in the slides. All right, so how do you perform a DDoS? This is like conceptual. You set up a bot or / botnet. I put both of them because you can technically do it with a single host. It just won't work good enough for you to notice anything. And then after that, you just tell the botnet to attack a certain target, depending on whether you want it to be HTTP or SOC 5. Basically, you want them to make a connection as soon as possible and maintain that connection. So what is a botnet? A botnet is basically a compromised machines which are going to do your task. Usually botnets are composed of machines on different networks, so you don't want them all coming from one IP address, because one of the ways to mitigate bots is to just ban the IP. Their goal is to literally launch as many requests as possible, so having a bunch of computers spread out across a large area, you're able to target any other computer pretty easily, if they're not secure or if they don't have mitigations.
Um, let's say IP banning wasn't a thing. Would it still be advantageous to do different networks? Because, say for example, you have 10 machines on the same network versus 100 machines on the same network, and you do DDoS on both. Wouldn't you eventually be throttled by your own networks, switch or whatever?
So yeah, and so the question was that if there would it still be advantageous to do botnet if
Even without IP banning.
without IP banning? Yeah, because you can take advantage of different computers and their interface. Because like an interface on a computer can do around 1 GB per second. For most computers, there's computers that go up to 10 and 100, but for most computers, they're gonna be around 1 gig. And what is technically the theoretical limit of how much things you can send out an Ethernet socket depends on how many Ethernet sockets you have making that connection. So there's also a thing where what about the recipient? Because now they can only hold that much data. So it depends on the whole infrastructure in the internet, and that's why these DDoS attacks can be powerful, because they can take down services that aren't even being attacked just because they're routing the traffic, right?
Oh, that's kind of like the Joss thing.
Yeah, so after we'll talk about what Vijat did to take down Rutgers' network for approximately 10 minutes before they banned them. So what are services? So I just want to get into like why even do DDoSing? Like what's the point of taking down a service in a sense? Services they're really what companies run on. They're API endpoints, servers that house stuff, anything that can supply information can be called a service. And the purpose of taking them down is to make it so that service no longer can supply the thing it needs to. So these can be bank attacks, government websites, Minecraft, and Sony. Sony's PSN is very prone to DDoS. Just because there's a lot of people who like to take down the PSN network when something's about to drop. Okay, so different types of DDoS attacks. So while DDoS attacks in themselves are just requesting, there's also modes of requesting. So what you're trying to perform with a DDoS attack is you're trying to take down the service. And there's different ways of doing that. It's not just, oh, request as many things as you can. You can also do something called yo-yo attacks, where you request a bunch of traffic at once, which will cause the recipient company to actually grow their infrastructure to supply that many attacks. So that many requests. So a lot of the times companies will set up automatic VMs that will spin up if they notice that there's a lot of requests coming in at once. And that costs the company a lot of money to start and stop those VMs. So a lot of the times yo-yo attacks will cause the company to actually lose a lot of money because the VMs are going to turn on, actually do those requests, but then those requests are going to go away. And then you keep doing that for a while until someone notices. I don't know the extent of how much money a company loses, but just keeping a DDoS attack live for a long time can significantly reduce even the amount of actual traffic that goes in. There's also application layer attacks, which are just making it so servers have to recache the website every time. So that's making it so they have to do a database update, because a lot of servers are created in a way that they don't have to always ask the database for new information. When they can just cache the information on the host network, on the host computer, and then send it back out. So these types of attacks force are focused more on stopping the database by reducing the amount of caching that is happening on the network. Okay, so into prevention. There's a few types of prevention. Specifically, the big name one is IP tracking. So tracking how many times an IP requests to your server. It is very easy to implement. The problem is that it's very easy to just go from another IP. So proxies are very common in DDoS attacks in order to ensure that the main IP that's sending out information isn't being attacked. Request tracking. So tracking the amount of requests from an IP address that fail, right? Because a lot of times people who are doing DDoS attacks are not sending to genuine API endpoints. They're just looking to overwhelm the service. So that could be just API endpoints without API key. It can be just like trying to sign in a bunch of times, so that way you have to do a bunch of queries and stuff like that. So you could track the amount of times IP addresses fail to do a request. Next one is traffic limiting. So just even limiting your hardware from taking on too many requests. So this goes into why companies implement like growth scale of VMs, which will grow based on the traffic. Because they want to limit the amount of traffic that is going to one server. Upskill filtering. So this is having a actual company that is specifically focused on stopping these DDoS attacks. So a big one is Cloudflare, and you can route all your traffic through Cloudflare, and they would automatically do 24/7 tracking to make sure that like whatever traffic is gonna finally get to your service is no longer is genuine traffic, right? DNS diversion and black holing. This is on the DNS level. Usually companies have an internal DNS. So what you could do is actually, if you figure out which IPs are doing it, or like which region is being attacked, what you can do is diverge that traffic to a dummy server or a DNS that is not even available, like has no listing, basically, which causes them to fail right off the bat because they can't make a connection to any service. The other thing is that DNS prevention is like an ongoing industry, because there's always new ways for attackers to attack services, and it's not just send request. There's a lot of stuff that like you need to do, and a lot of tools do already have that built in. There's a lot of stuff that you need to do in order to filter the amount of stuff that's going through and actually getting to your service. So from the DDoS standpoint, there's stuff that you can do to actually get your traffic through. One of the ways is IP spoofing. So changing or masking your original IP using a proxy. IP spreading, so just using way more IPs than just one in order to limit the ability for the attacker to take on or stop just one IP. Request spoofing, so this is making your request look like a actual user. This is like making your request look like a browser, for instance, because browsers send certain headers and certain ways of sending them and make certain connections that a regular script probably wouldn't. So mimicking those requests from a certain IP address will make it look like you're actually doing regular user-based movements around the website. And to further on, TLS spoofing is a little bit lower level, but it's actually changing the way that your client is connecting to the server to look like how the browser would connect. So this is like adding and removing ciphers based on the fingerprints of Chrome or Firefox or Safari, right? So there's different tools to do it. These are a few older tools. They've been around the block and a lot of companies have already blocked them. Specifically the top one, I've tried on my own machine and it does not work. It makes a connection, but they fail, which is a good thing. And
I have a question about last slide.
oh yeah, yes.
I was just thinking, has there been cases where they spoof a particular network, but they're actually trying to get it blocked? So let's say I have your IP address and I want you not to have access to the service. So I actually purposefully pump a bunch of packets with your IP just to block your specific network. Does that make sense? So I'm denying service. So our IP
So like kind of a roundabout way.
yeah. So your IP gets blocked, which is good, but it's your IP, it's your victim's IP.
So
How do we get around it?
So I'm sure there is probably instances of that because you can do domain. It probably wouldn't happen on the IP side of it. It would happen on the domain. So registering a domain with a different IP address. However, I don't think there's instances of where it was the other way around, where you were able to spoof as if you're another IP address, because there's a lot of oh no. Did it die? I just shut it off again. So I don't think that there's instances of spoofing the actual IP address. You can spoof your MAC address to make it look like you're a different client, but your IP address is usually given by a internet service provider, and that's the IP address that is seen by everyone else, right? So the internet service provider is the one that's actually giving you your public IP address, unless you are able to unless you have someone on the the internet service provider side making it look like, oh, you have a different IP address, then I don't think that has happened, but I'm sure there might be some similar instances.
So in the case of the bot networks, those bots have already been assigned IPs. So you're saying they're not just like making up, like when you're spoofing for the bot network, that's already been assigned.
Yeah, it's already been
Coming
assigned.
up with-
Yeah.
This is it's not exactly a DDoS attack, but you mentioned proxies earlier. I was
Yes.
thinking there's a very similar, okay, so it's a tool that it's not meant for DDoS attacks, but it uses a lot of the same techniques. Basically, you know, Mega, the file hosting service.
Mega file.
Yeah, they have like a 5 GB download limit or something. But there are tools that you can get from GitHub that let you circumvent the download limit, and then you use like proxies like that. So they basically spread out the download request across like a few thousand different IP addresses. So you can download like hundreds of gigabytes worth of stuff and never circumvent the 5 gig limit. No, because it's not peer-to-peer, it's hosted on a server.
Yeah. So what that would probably do is it actually uses Mega has probably listed proxies that it sees as good. And like that's probably something the devs have put in just because they want to add stuff to the Mega service.
Okay.
That they probably use those proxies to upload stuff, or Mega themselves actually upload files through their services, and they don't want to get stopped by the link. And people have probably found those proxies and started using them.
Got it.
Because a proxy, all it really does is it takes a list, well, it takes your request, makes a connection, and then forwards your request.
Right.
Unless they own those proxies themselves, which I'd assume they would want to own those proxies themselves. But those are probably like valid IPs that they have let through that people have found.
That's interesting.
I won't.
Yeah, go.
Because I've done some networking stuff, and even then, I still never really understood this concept of why IP spoofing is so difficult. I mean, why is it? Because really, it's just bits that are getting sent out to the DNS server, and you're making a request or something like that, or you make asking a service, right?
Yeah.
Why is it? I mean, is it a location attached to this? Is there some encryption?
So
why is the IP like? Why can't you just, inject something?
So there's actually a reason for this. What happens is when you do a request, your request goes out of your router, and then towards your ISP. On that request, and I'll show you in a bit, it tells you want to get this certain IP address. And before that, you make a TLS connection. So you send out a connect packet saying I want to connect to this network. Maybe I could show it. I do have Wireshark.
Yeah, I'm familiar with.
Yeah. So you make a TLS connection, which sets up the socket that you're running on there. And that connection actually has the tunnels get assigned by your ISP. So the ISP actually makes that connection for you and routes your traffic to that service. So there's a bunch of third parties in the middle of you and someone else that are stopping you from being able to spoof your IP, because who is actually telling the other person that this is your IP is your ISP, right? And because of that, it's not you giving yourself the IP unless you have direct control over your ISP, or you're sending it through the proxy, right? All right. Yes.
Okay, so let's say like a university, for example, where it has essentially an ISP.
Yes.
What if a university was compromised and decided to start this falsifying IP addresses, or maybe even making duplicate IP addresses that already exist elsewhere? What would happen?
It would depend on what the DNSs are configured to make that connection. Because technically there's nothing stopping you from saying that two things have the same IP. It just, the computers that route all the traffic won't really know how to route the traffic. I don't know for sure what happens if you assign two devices the same IP address, but many routers don't even allow you to do that.
Right.
Like they'll check their listings and they won't allow you to do that. So there's nothing stopping you from actually spoofing your internal IPs because you have control over the router. When you're connected to the internet, you do not have control over the router. It's the internet service provider that has control. And the IP addresses for a lot of major companies are not hosted by ISPs, instead are hosted by, I think the internet, was it ICANN? ICANN, where they register all the most public domains, and that's why you can like use DNS lookup like 1.1.1.1. That's I think Google, or is it Cloudflare? It's Cloudflare. Hmm? The 8.1 is Google. Okay. Yeah. So that you're basically those IPs are registered under ICANN. And it's those are the ones that basically register most of the biggest companies, so it's very hard for you to spoof those things. Unless you get into ICANN somehow and change the record that they have.
Is there anything that changes if you're inside a network? So like within Rutgers, like, I guess I wasn't sure if that's exactly what I was asking, but now we're not just attacking any of these, we're attacking specific ones within the same network. So like Rutgers, for example, does that change something? Are we able to now spoof it easier, or is it the same thing?
So Rutgers themselves have traffic limits, and Rajat might tell you about this in a bit. They will actually block, because like all of the requests that you make are made from your user account. They've done a really good job in stopping you from making requests outside your user account and like outside the iLab, so they know who's making requests from the Rutgers network, and everything attached to the Rutgers network also needs a profile, which basically tells the Rutgers routers that like, hey, I need an IP, and then they assign you the IP. So it's very hard to do spoofing unless you have access to the actual like record log, and that is behind like a bunch of people. So
no, I didn't just mean Rutgers, I meant just like this. From what I understand, it's like ISP is still controlling that tunnel, but I was
yes.
wondering, from a penetration hacking perspective, right? Let's say you just are in the network. You have a computer that can access the network. Does that give you any sort of
Leverage?
Leverage.
If you're already within the network,
Yeah.
then yes. Like it's like putting up it's like how a lot of malwares work. If they can get within your network, they have a full like advantage because there's less middlemen to step through, right? Because from the internet perspective, you got to go through a bunch of DNSs before you can actually make a tunnel connection. But when you're within a network, it's probably like a few switches and a couple routers that you're going through before you make that tunnel connection. But it's also a lot easier to spot, right? When you're doing it from the internet perspective, you can be anywhere around the world to do connect to like google.com. But when you're within the network, there's only a few places you can be attached directly to the network, right? So I want to show, this is a server we've created in order to do like honeypotting and also like figuring out how many requests been made by a certain IP address. You see, okay. This is give me a second. I'm just gonna use the other one. Yeah. I think it just like overheats. Yeah. It's $80 on the drink. Oh shit, it will run. We got 10 minutes to do something. Okay, that's fine. I am logged in. Yeah, I'm logged in. I blame Rutgers. Anyway, so this is gonna be hard to spot because I don't think you can read that. I will try to make it bigger. That's a little readable, right?
You might want to restart the meeting before you do the download, just so it doesn't die in the middle, so Colin isn't lost.
Do we have the recordings?
They'd be recording somewhere.
Somewhere in the vicinity.
Okay, so if you stop recording now, stop the stream, and then like leave the call, and then restart the call, start recording. Yeah.
Okay. This is gonna be a hassle to like move back. Okay. We are back. All right. So as you can see, this the server hasn't gotten any request logs yet. So we're gonna request to it from localhost. It's
What is it?
it's an Apache server. Apache in quotes. No, it's an Express.js server. So I'm using Express.js from Node. And it's mimicking an Apache server. So it will send out as if it's an Apache server. It will also, okay, thank you.
Wait, did you send the new Zoom link out?
No, I did not. How do I do that?
Go to
Meeting info?
participants at the top. Yeah, copy invite.
Okay.
Hit the publish button.
Can I have to edit it. Yes. It's for it's so you don't like by accident just ping everyone. And
No,
it's for announcements.
it's for announcements or publishing it to other servers.
Oh, okay.
So like when you hit publish, it gets forwarded to like every other server that's subscribing to the announcement channel.
Do we have any servers?
Yeah.
All right, so this is not makes sense. Okay, so this is it's mimicking Apache. So if I reload here and I go here and look at the headers, you'll see that it says let me see, there's a response headers. It'll say that it's an Apache version 2.4.2, which is a very old version of Apache, which has a bunch of bugs in it. So the point of the server was to basically be a honeypot. But we're gonna use it to show DDoSing if we can get it working. So I'm going to use a tool called wfuzz, which will send out a bunch of requests to the server and try to see which endpoints are actually available. This is similar to what DDoS attacks will do, except when they send the request, they will keep the socket open to make as many connections as possible, not necessarily one by one, right? The unfortunate thing is that we are not able to do it from a single host because the tools that were given to us, like Solaris, is very limited when it comes to bandwidth. So a lot of servers will already have things inside them that stop attacks like Solaris. Okay. Let us try to wfuzz it. So I'm gonna start up a bunch of wfuzz instances, and we'll see these requests coming in on the actual service. So these are all the requests coming in. You'll see that they have like a certain content type and user agent. So a lot of times, DDoSers will spoof the user agent because it's very easy to set HTTP headers, and they'll set it to whatever Chrome is that on that day. And they will do all these requests. And here the connection closes after because it made the request and now it's done. But on the actual on actual DDoS client, they will keep the socket open and just make new requests to try to fill up as many sockets as they can.
Would it be useful to, like, say for example, even if you do the most recent version, if it's obvious that there's a spike in traffic and all of them have the same user agent train, isn't that a way of tracking the stacks? Like, would it be of value to randomize the user agent string a little bit in your requests?
So yeah, it would be a value because you can act as if it's like a different browser sending the request. But I would be wary of sending it from the same IP address because they can kind of see that, oh, this IP address is giving out multiple user agent strings. And that is actually a way to tell if it's something is a bot or something or not, if it just randomizes its user strings from the same address, because I don't think most people don't have 12 different browsers and different browser versions at the same time. And what we're talking about with the user string, this like user agent, this is the most up-to-date Chrome from Intel. And this is what's actually getting sent out to the server.
Actually, isn't it Safari?
No, it's Chrome.
It is Chrome.
This is Chrome. This is a Chrome browser. Yeah, so user agents don't really tell you much about what's actually going on. So they'll give you like, oh, it's an iOS device. This is a Mac device. Most of them will have Mozilla in them, but like also a lot of things just have Mozilla in it because I'm guessing that's what they use as like a JavaScript framework.
Right. Well, I know it has Apple WebKit and HTML, but it's weird that it says Safari out there in the Chrome version.
Also, the client keeps this socket open.
Mm-hmm.
How is it not affecting your own service?
It is.
It is. I mean, surely it's not proportional, it's not equal to what you're sending out. Right? Are you literally putting that same load on your own network?
You're putting that same, this is why it's distributed, is because you are putting that same load on your network as sending those requests. But if you distribute it amongst a bunch of networks, that load is literally distributed a bunch of on a bunch of networks, causing it to be a lot, allowing you to send way more requests than if you were from a single network. And a bunch of networks trying to attack a single network is a recipe for failure. That is like the main way, like you're trying to overwhelm a single network. That is the purpose of it, right?
So when they have like 10 terabyte, you see like on the news, 10 terabyte DDoS attack.
Yes.
I mean, surely they're multiplying it somehow, some facts, or they're literally like on their own distributed network having 10 terabytes.
It is not, so yeah, it isn't like 10 terabytes going through a single Ethernet port. Like I said before, that like Ethernet ports themselves have bandwidth limits. Just because of how fast the hardware is able to pull. That is literally why it's distributed, in the sense that like the network that's being attacked is receiving 10 terabytes worth of data per second. It's not necessarily that it is being processed. It's just like from the actual like scans, they were able to track that the 10 terabytes worth of packets have been sent, right? We'll see here that like this, just running those 3 fuzz attacks, we're able to send 544 requests. I ran this previous and I was able to get 1,000 requests a second processed. So that's from one IP, and that's from my internal machine on a VM. You can probably get to upwards of like 20 to 40,000 requests from a bunch of IP addresses. Yeah.
Is there another way to get a sizable botnet other than using malware to infect other machines?
I mean, you can also just own the proxies.
Also,
Yeah.
a lot of them.
So,
How did so the guy who wrote the botnet at Rutgers, did he just infect a bunch of other machines he had that in his like back pocket to use?
I think so. Most of the time, it's like you infect a bunch of computers to do your bidding for you, right? Yeah. Uh, Yeah, so took down in quotes. So yeah, a lot of the time you'll have
What I read correctly, it's like
Quackbot.
something like they fixed part of it.
Okay. I don't know much about Quackbot.
Well, I mean, the one thing that like the FBI was, at least for all the US based, it was like 200,000 devices. US based, they basically gave, they contacted those people. And they basically like, here, install this patch, and it basically looks for the malware in the computer.
Oh,
So
okay.
that's good. But there's also 500,000 outside of the US, which no one gives a shit about, so.
They didn't release that software out to like
I
be
think
able
it's
to
specific, like. Groups, but I think they were mainly concerned about the 200,000
in the US.
They didn't really get much.
That has been a very common occurrence with how the US treats stuff. So I'm gonna take it over to Rajat when he's ready to explain his experience with DDoSing.
Yeah, okay, 1 second. You know what to do
Also figuring.
Yeah, I'm preparing right now.
Was it the first one we said, the figuring out we used?
Hmm?
Yeah.
Oh, for this?
Yeah.
This is WFuzz.
Is that one of the ones?
I don't know.
No, so WFuzz isn't a DDoS tool, it's a scanning tool, but we're using it to demonstrate what DDoSers would do when they send out requests. This is the type, like, that's the speed that they would be sending out requests. Yes, basically. Yeah. It is a very powerful tool for finding like endpoints on surfaces.
Yeah.
Okay, so on the topic of yeah, on the topic of DDoSes, there's something I wanted to talk about, which is a competition that we did sort of as a club a few months ago. Let me see if I can find the website from.
Just like 3 fingers this time.
Okay. Okay, cool. Let's see if it's still up. It's called Hack the Stack. It was like there's a thing run by Stack Overflow that was. Yeah, okay. I don't think you can find the website very easily.
You want to type in? Yeah, what if you?
No, I remember trying to like search for this before and like nothing came up. It like disappeared as soon as it ended. Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know what happened to it. I think if we check Discord, we can find the original link. But also this is recording, it's gonna be posted publicly, so I don't want to like open Discord. Yeah. Well, we can like stop the recording later and just like. No, I mean like I don't want to open the channel it's in.
Oh, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
You wanna send? What if you send me the? You found it?
Yeah, I mean, I already went through it.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's in the channel called Competitions General. It's like the first thing in the channel.
It's a GitHub?
Yeah, mlh.github.io.
Search it on GitHub.
Okay, wait, I can just type in the URL actually. mlh.github.io/. That's really sad.
You search up the name of the link, it brings you up to a sad dog that says art.
Yeah. Oh wait, that's the wrong link. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I clicked the wrong link. So basically, this is the link they sent you to DDoS, and if you actually like go to it in your web browser, it just redirects you to a random YouTube video.
Oh, okay, that's actually cool.
Yeah, okay, here's the leaderboard. Yeah, well, let's at least see the dog. Yeah, it's a really cute dog.
No, so we can't see the.
Yeah, we do have the screenshot though. I can just like see.
Oh yeah, it's normal every time. Is it every time? Yeah, it's every time.
It's every time because your browser caches it. If you like
Oh,
force
really?
it to reload without the cache, it'll give you a different video. There's a selection, I think. I got like Rickroll ones and a
Oh.
couple other ones.
It's like,
If we wanna go to Discord, we should probably stop.
Yeah, okay. I'm just gonna explain it briefly for the recording. Spoiler, alert, we won the competition by like a really wide margin. So yeah, basically this competition was just to give you a week. They made a URL, and it was just send as many requests as you can to this URL in a week. And I think there's a screenshot somewhere. Let me just double check. Yeah, okay, we got to almost 23 billion requests in a week, so quite a few. Yeah, and the second place was only like 9 billion, so we were more than double the second place team, so we beat them by a lot. Alright, is there anything else? Okay, I think it's time to stop the recording and open Discord. Alright, goodbye,
Yes.
everyone.
Did anyone talk in chat?
Let's check chat. Nope.
No.
Okay, and
And